In this video, we're going to be going over how the YouTube algorithm actually works in 2024. So before we jump into what the algorithm specifically looks for in videos, you need to understand it from YouTube's side of the story. So if you're looking at it from the perspective of YouTube, they have one main goal, which is to make the most amount of money possible. Obviously, any business is trying to do that. Well, how do they do that? Well, they do that by getting advertisers to spend money to run ads on their platform. So the more users they can have on their platform and the longer they can have them there, the more money they will make because they can show them more ads. So their goal is to show them as many ads as possible. Now, that doesn't mean they show them 10 ads in 10 minutes because then the person would probably leave. They want long-term satisfaction from that viewer, so they keep returning as well. One of the big things that YouTube does is they look at people's sessions in a big picture kind of view. They don't look at it as, okay, this person watched one video and then that's it. They look at their entire journey from when they open YouTube to when they leave. So if they're showing them 10 ads at once, obviously, the person's probably going to leave pretty quick compared to over a certain amount of time they spend on the platform, and they'll probably be more likely to return if they're satisfied. So some of the main goals of YouTube's algorithm is to help each viewer find videos that they want to watch and will find actually useful or enjoyable. And then they want to maximize long-term viewer satisfaction. As I said, you want someone to keep returning. That's a lot more beneficial than just having someone do one long session, show them a bunch of ads, and then they're gone forever. They want that long-term value with an individual. So those are really the two things that the algorithm is trying to do. It's trying to deliver the best content to a user so they stay on the platform as long as possible and feel happy and like they spent good time watching those videos and actually being on the platform. So how the algorithm actually works, it starts by doing, well, really there's two steps first off. There's one, which is it will classify content. So it takes all the content out there and it says, okay, what categories can I put this content into? That is determined by things like the title of the video, the description and what words are used in that, the tags of the video, the captions in the video or the transcript, so what's actually being said in the video. So those are the main ways YouTube really classifies content initially. It looks at all those things. It looks for maybe main keywords and then maybe gives you different topics for your main topics. And then you have subtopics for that video. So it classifies content and puts it almost in buckets, you could say. So there's content in bucket 1, which is about cooking, and then content in bucket 2 that might be about fitness. And then you might have small little sub buckets in, let's say you have cooking. Well, maybe there's some specifically for vegetarians. So that could be a sub bucket or subtopic in cooking. So it'll classify the content sort of that way. And then it will rank that content for what other relevant content is in maybe that bucket or sub buckets. And again, this can go down a long chain if you have a video about multiple topics or things that can fall in different ones. It is weighing those separately. We don't know exactly how it works, but it's ranking that content against other pieces of content. And that's when you get into the individual factors. Some of these things, and we'll go in a little more depth, but how relevant the video is to who it's shown to, how long is the person watching the video, or is someone likely to click on the thumbnail? There's a lot of things that go into it, and we'll talk about that right now. So they classify the content, and then they rank it, and then that is how it is delivered. Now, there are really three main different sections on YouTube. You have your homepage, and all of these will have slightly different algorithms, but mainly kind of the same driving factors behind all these, because you have your homepage. Now, on this, there's a lot of kind of recommended. It's not the person's subscription feed, but they do show some of your subscriptions in there. They do show some new content they think you're going to be interested in there. They have the recommended section as well. Again, this is going to be a lot of newer content stuff you can find and explore in there. And then you have search. So if someone's searching a keyword on YouTube, what determines what keywords you rank for and where you're showing up. So these are all slightly different. So that's just something to keep in mind here. Now, when it comes to the algorithm, there's two kind of main classifications for the type of factors they're looking at. And those can really be broken down into what I like to just call video factors. So factors about your actual content in that video. And then they also have individual viewer factors. So things that each individual it's going to be different for that is viewing your content, depending on a couple other things. And what I mean by that is, let's just talk about the individual viewer ones now. So it looks at that person's past history. So past view history is a decent sized factor for that individual. So if your channel and someone else's channel have very similar content and this individual views that other content and enjoys it and stays on the platform long from that, then they're more likely to also do the same with yours if you have quality content that matches. So it looks at similar topics and content, what videos performed well for this individual, and it will try and choose that category or topics for them based off of that. Things like region and language also come into play when it comes to this individual user. They look at things like similar subscriptions, if they watch similar channels, again, how they interact with that content, and also things that they are searching. So those are the individual viewer factors that we can't really affect other than how we're telling YouTube what our videos are about. Now, when it comes to the main factors for the YouTube algorithm, there's a couple different things. But like we were saying before, keeping someone on the platform is the biggest thing that YouTube is trying to do. And how they do this is by showing them content they enjoy. So the biggest video factors initially are things like watch time, so how long the person is staying on the video total, but also what percent of that video the person is actually watching, so total and average view time, view duration. It'll also look at things that show how people are enjoying a video, or if they dislike it or not, or if they like it. So this will be things like any of the engagement metrics, so likes, comments, shares. Those kind of things hold a decent amount of weight. They're not make it or break it. Another thing they look at is if the person ends up going to your channel after they view your video, and if they subscribe to you, or how likely they would be to actually do that. Another big factor is what they do after watching your video. So when they're done, what are they doing? Are they immediately exiting YouTube? Because we know YouTube wants to keep them on the platform as long as possible. So what they do after your video actually matters. So if you're driving them off the platform for their session and they're done and they don't come back, then that is not a positive. We want to keep them on the platform as long as possible. Now, if you have a business, obviously you have to drive them off the platform sometimes, but keeping them on the platform is beneficial. And you can do this through things like playlists. You can do this by mentioning a video you recently posted that might be similar to the content you're talking about in that video and drive them to that at the end, or one of the points where people would normally drop off on watch time. You could recommend your video in there, or just talk about it in your video right there. So you get them, instead of dropping off, they might go and click to something else, since that's when the interest is really dipping. You also can use something like an end screen, and YouTube will automatically recommend what it thinks the best video would be at the end of your video if they did watch it all the way through, or just create that playlist and mention it and show it on the side, or even put a link to it in your description. Some other factors that matter when it comes to YouTube's algorithm are the click-through rate. So your thumbnail is important. One of the ways that YouTube tests a video is they'll normally test it in little batches. They'll show your videos normally initially to your following, and if you don't have a decent or an okay small size of a following, then it'll show it to random people. But they look at things like the click-through rate, so how many people saw the thumbnail versus how many clicked on it. This shows that, hey, this person is interested in this topic and this is a good thumbnail or title, and they're clicking on it, so they might be interested in this video. So it might be appropriate to show this to more people and see how other factors perform as well. So it's one of the big factors when it comes to pushing content initially. You need to get that click-through rate, otherwise you're not going to have the great metrics of watch time and views and those kind of things. So click-through rate with your thumbnail and your title are extremely important. They also look at if people click the little 3 bubbles at the bottom of a video and then click not interested. Obviously, that content might not be accurate for what it's ranking for right now. So that's something they take into account as well. So those are a lot of the big factors for YouTube's algorithm. Again, watch time is probably one of the biggest ones, along with that click-through rate initially. And how it works is they'll test with a small group of people, like I was saying, normally your current audience, or people who may have seen your content in the past and interacted with it. They'll test it and see, hey, a lot of people aren't clicking on this thumbnail for the video they just posted, so we're not going to show it to more because it seems like it might not be, people might not just be interested in it. But if it's performing very well, they're going to show it to more people. And if it starts doing better and outperforming other content that's ranking for those keywords, then it'll continue to be pushed. And that's why you'll see exponential growth once you start growing a little bit and get 1 or 2 videos that are doing well. Now, there are a couple big myths when it comes to the YouTube algorithm. The first one is that the algorithm only cares about recent videos. While it does take the age of the content into effect and how quickly the views are accumulating on it, it's not that if you have an old video, it won't get pushed. People have had videos, myself even, that a year or 2 years down the road, it gets pushed later on. And this can actually be explained for a couple of reasons, but one of the ways that YouTube learns your channel and your content is based off the videos you post. So if you have videos that aren't doing well, it's going to be more difficult for YouTube to know, hey, this is their audience and who we should be showing the content to, which would in turn make it perform better. So telling YouTube what the video is about is really important. And if you start to build up and YouTube says, oh, okay, this channel is about this type of content, I'm going to start testing their content with this when they post about that, then you could see older videos when they start to recommend to a better audience. It's almost like ads when it starts to learn what performs better with certain audiences and start recommending that. It does the same with your subscribers. So that is a reason older content can actually get viewed, or why it would randomly get views all of a sudden. Another myth, small channels don't get pushed. That's just not true. If you go onto YouTube on the homepage right now, almost every time in that first 2 rows of videos, you're going to see one that doesn't have a ton of views. And this is testing usually newer content. It might be a little different than what you normally view, but they do put some small creators here to test very often. They try and always have at least one in there that is a little bit smaller or one you haven't seen before. So I don't think small channels just don't get pushed is true. Again, when you understand the background of it, like we just explained, it makes more sense. Another big myth is that YouTube punishes channels that have a lot of poor performing videos. This isn't true. They don't take the past performances per se of videos into account. So they don't look at just, oh, they have a bunch of bad videos, so we're going to not push them in the future. They don't look at historical performance like that when it comes to pushing content or not. And one really interesting piece of the algorithm that will affect channels is when it comes to deleting videos. So YouTube usually doesn't like, and any social media doesn't like, when you delete content. Usually might show that it's not high quality or that it might be spam. How YouTube works is when you have a video and it's getting views, YouTube learns about that audience. So if you have one video doing good and it's not what your main channel is about, that could be not beneficial because it's thinking that more of your channel would be about that because that's a lot of your viewers. So let's say you have one video that got 20,000 views and the rest have 20 views. It has a lot more data about these people. So it's going to be recommending that content to other people. So if you have a channel and you recently switched subjects, it could be beneficial to deleting those, because when you delete a video, you're deleting the audience and info gained from that video for your channel. So that's also something to keep in mind with any other content you have. If it got a little bit or a decent amount of views, but it's right up your alley, it's learning what type of audience is interacting with that. And it's learning more about your channel. And that kind of ties in exactly where an old video could get pushed, because YouTube is learning more about your channel and your content and what it's about. So when it comes to deleting videos, you have to take it with a grain of sand and see if it is worth it. You're not going to be punished for deleting a couple videos by any means, but it could be beneficial or it could be very harmful. So you have to be careful if you are going to delete any of your videos, because that audience tied with it will also get deleted. Now, what can you actually do to help affect the algorithm for YouTube videos? And the first thing is you need to help YouTube classify your content. What's it about? We need to know what bucket they should put it in. Is it in cooking? Is it fitness? Is it a mix of both? And having very general content is very difficult to do starting off as a small channel. It's a lot easier to dominate and rank for a niche, but it doesn't matter if you're tiny. You can still rank for that if your content does really well with the initial push and people they test it with. When it comes to classifying content, things like having the right keywords in your title, having those in your description as well, using the right tags, even captioning your video or transcribing and uploading those captions helps YouTube know all the content that's talked about in the video, and they pick up keywords from in there as well. And also having video chapters. They do like to push content a little bit more, in my opinion, that have those video chapters. It's easier to navigate for people. And on Google searches, you can even see those chapters a lot of times. So it does help with SEO in that matter as well. So video chapters as well. So those are kind of things you can help to classify content with YouTube. The next kind of thing, one of the most important, is your thumbnails. Your thumbnails and your title are the only factors when it comes to your click-through rate. So how many people are clicking on it based on how many are seeing it. And YouTube gives you the option to split test thumbnails. So you can test multiple versions of it, see which thumbnail is performing best, and after a certain amount of time, use that one because it is performing better. And some things you can test with your thumbnail is, does it have a face in it or not? test if that's performing better, how much text you have on the screen. If you have a little red arrow or circling something, sometimes that'll make it perform better. You could try less cluttered, very simple, or just try different styles and colors. So there's a lot of different things you can split test. A lot of people will have at least 2 or 3 thumbnails per video once they grow and get bigger if you have those resources, and test those and really see what is performing better. Also, some things that seem pretty obvious: upload content that is in HD, at least 1080p. If it's lower quality, it's probably not going to be pushed as much, and it's harder to consume and enjoy a low quality video. Make sure you're editing your videos so you don't have long pauses, blank spaces, or things that are boring, and you're keeping the user's attention, maybe getting them in with the hook in the initial part of the video, telling them why they should stay, what payoff they're going to get at the end, and then delivering that all the way through and telling them, hey, remember, we're going to get to this part at the end, and blah, blah, blah. So there's a couple different things in your videos depending on your type of content and how you want to structure it. And the last thing is helping them stay on the platform after your video. Again, what they do after your video is important. So things you can do: you can make playlists. You can use end screens that show either a certain playlist. They can show a recommended video, which actually does pretty well with YouTube. They do good, obviously, knowing what that individual user, when they get to your end screen, would actually want to see. So using that recommended one, I found to have the most success with that, but also trying to push them to any other relevant playlists you have, and actually creating those playlists and titling them properly and having them go and view those in a relevant order, because we want to keep them on the platform. So those are really the main factors and the different things that go into YouTube's algorithm. There's tons of other tiny little things and little nuances, but those are the main things that really matter in how the algorithm works. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Tired of feeling overwhelmed with marketing your small business? Let our experienced marketing team help your business grow. With personalized strategies tailored to meet your needs, we'll help you stand out in a crowded market. Contact us today for more information at foxsocialmedia.com.